Anyway, all right. Well, we do have a SALT segment for you guys today. I talked about this a little bit on TYT, but I wanted to go back to it. I want to talk about it again because Senator Kennedy is
no relation to the.
No. I'm talking about his name is Senator John Kennedy, but it's not who you think he is. So I'll present the story. Let's talk about it. So Republican Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana had this exchange with the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, that made my blood boil. I wish that there were reporters who actually cared about these types of exchanges and actually called Senator Kennedy out for being a hypocrite, a liar, and a self-interested ghoul. But I'll do that. I'll do that on their behalf since they're unwilling to do it. And so here's the exchange that I'm talking about, and I'll explain to you later why it is infuriating.
You have strongly encouraged Congress to pass another coronavirus bill, $2 trillion. And I guess tell me, if you could, in just a couple of sentences, why you think we need to do that. If we're looking at 6% GDP growth this year, and as soon as the end of this month, we'll be back where we were in February 2020.
Actually, Senator, I have consistently not taken a position on this bill.
So you don't have an opinion about whether we ought to pass President Biden's bill?
As I've said since the December press conference, I think on every public occasion when I've been asked about it, I've said that it's not appropriate for the Fed to be playing a role in these fiscal discussions about particular provisions and particular laws. It's just we didn't comment on the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. We didn't comment on the CARES Act. We just it's not our role to do that.
So your opinion is if we don't pass the bill, you're cool with that?
That would be expressing an opinion. So that's what I'm not doing is expressing an opinion.
All right. There are no winners. There's no winner in this exchange. Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, actually does have a pretty big opinion on whether or not financial aid is necessary when it comes to failing corporations. When it comes to failing corporations, let's print it out, baby. Let's go ahead and just pump up these failing corporations with money, low interest money, right? They get a bailout. They've been getting bailouts since 2008. They got another massive bailout to the tune of trillions of dollars during the coronavirus pandemic. So he's got opinions. He's the head of the Federal Reserve. Like the fact that he's trying to rise above it, I don't really have an opinion on relief for, those average people. I don't deal with that. So I have an issue with him, clearly. Yeah. But go ahead, Nando, because I'm about to go on a rant. I want to give you a chance to jump in.
I want to see your rant, so maybe just go ahead. What I have to say is not that particularly interesting. Yeah.
And then you have Senator Kennedy, who, through his line of questioning, is trying to make it clear that he believes that the economy is doing real well. It's doing so well, guys. Look, what's the GDP, which, by the way, Jerome Powell doesn't even know what the GDP growth is. What is your role? What's your job? You don't know? You can't answer that question? Okay, fine. But he's trying to make this point about how we don't even need to pass another round of coronavirus relief. We don't need to do that. Everything is great because the GDP, which is a flawed metric to look at when it comes to the real economy, indicates that we're seeing growth, guys. Okay, and then they turn around when it comes to increasing the $15 or increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Then they'll change their messaging to, we're in the middle of a pandemic, guys. We're in the middle of a pandemic. These companies are really hurting. The economy is really hurting. If we increase the federal minimum wage, these companies just can't do it. They'll collapse. Everything will collapse. The economy is really suffering during this pandemic. And no one in the media calls it out. No one in the media calls it out. And by the way, Republicans like Kennedy pretend like they care about the deficit, but they don't care about the deficit when it comes to, tax cuts for their millionaire and billionaire friends. As, I found this tweet by a reporter back in 2017, because of course, Senator Kennedy is one of those Republicans who voted in favor of Trump's tax cuts for the rich. Senator John Kennedy tells reporters his focus is on three things: tax cuts, and tax cuts. And then he takes off his bracelet and shows it to us, and it says failure is not an option. Well, he's a massive failure. Our federal government is a massive failure. So apparently failure is an option. This is me being very salty. So this is, the right topic.
I want to pop popcorn. No, watching that exchange between Jerome Powell and Senator Kennedy. Senator Kennedy is, not our best. He's not the best. This guy's a senator. He's like just shockingly unprepared for a discussion.
Yeah, foghorn leghorn.
Yeah, one of the most powerful people on the planet. I mean, it just made me think about what you were saying, that this guy is so terrified of expressing an opinion. And I understand on some level, because he is literally one of the most powerful people on the planet. And it just made me think about how the Federal Reserve and the European Central Bank, these completely undemocratic institutions, just completely outside of any of the democratic controls that we would want in any sort of sane system, really are deciding everything about the fate of the world, on some level. I'm exaggerating a bit, but just the amount of money that they could just pump into whomever, here, you get money. They can just do that. And they just decide it on their own. They don't consult with congressional leaders. They don't, they certainly don't get elected. They don't none of this stuff is subject to any sort of public debate. It just happens. It's these kind of, they're the elected, not elected, they're the elders who kind of oversee our economies these days. They've grown more and more in power and less and less accountable to any sort of democratic input. And yeah, they run everything, and it barely anyone understands it. Even very smart people. I barely understand how the Fed works, or how the European Central Bank operates, but they really govern our lives. And it's one of those things that makes you a little bit kind of despair, because it's we have no access to these. We have no ability to storm these bastilles, so to speak. I'm not talking about literally walking in there and murdering them, but we have no way of having any effect on who these people are, and what they decide and it's crazy.
The part about Powell's unwillingness to share an opinion that's so infuriating is that he is being asked a line of questions regarding GDP growth that is artificial based on the Federal Reserve's actions, right? So the Federal Reserve pumps money into failing corporations. They turn around, engage in stock buybacks and all sorts of nonsense that artificially inflates the stock market, which is included in this measure of the GDP growth, right? And then that measure is being used by Senator Kennedy to tell the American people, the economy's doing great, guys. You don't need any help. Yeah. And then he asks Jerome Powell to jump in, and he's like, "Oh no, I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't know anything about that. I'm just trying not to share any opinions on it." No, you're part and parcel of the system that's screwing over the average American right now. You should have an opinion about it. But, he's a coward. Imagine having a position of power like that and not using it to actually help people. Yeah. Using it to help, the worst elements of society, and then turn around and be an absolute coward when you can't even answer a single question by, a pathetic and laughable Louisiana senator. That's my salt. That's my salt for you guys today.
Very salty.